Hello, Brian the Fanboy here, and today I'm gonna talk about Frankenstein, or at least you say Frankenstein's monster. Now, my earliest memory of the character was from Daffy Duck's Quackbuster, and you gotta hear me talk about the movie in the next few videos. Since that's where I learned about those classic movie monsters from. Well, anyway, after Daffy Duck sang his song, he went to where all the monsters are, and started to say things to them, to make them laugh. And as for Frankenstein's monsters, Daffy Duck went to him and said, "Hiya, Frankie, how's the missus?" And the bride of Frankenstein was there, and she was hissing. Now, a few years later, I started to learn more about the character. Not a lot, but kind of like the premise of what he's supposed to be, his origin and stuff. Like he was brought to life by mad scientists, and there was electricity, and the creature got up and started wreaking havoc and all that stuff. And I seen that kind of stuff a lot in cartoons when I was a kid. And there was even episodes of Police Explains It All that did something like that. Only I think it was more like a White of Frankenstein kind of thing. No, then when I got a little bit older, I started wondering what Frankenstein was. I mean, I knew what the werewolf was, I knew what the mummy was, I knew what the vampire was, and I knew what that Dracula was a vampire. But what was Frankenstein? And yes, I did call the creature Frankenstein at that time because most people, what was his name? And well, when I asked my aunt about another man about it, she said that Frankenstein was the guy who came back to life. But it wasn't some years later when I learned what he really was. But I get to that. I mean, before I get to that, you see, when I was in second grade, my second grade teacher read the class the story of Frankenstein, but it was more of a novelization of the movie and not the original book. And I will get to the book in a moment. Let's see. Oh yes, in Big Fat Beetleborgs, there was a character called Frankenbeans. And yes, he was supposed to be like a parody of Frankenstein's monster. And his father was a mad scientist known as Baron von Frankenbeans. Usually, when he said his name, there's a thunder, roaring and wolves howling. Now, anyway, back to the character of Frankenstein's monster. Well, when I was in high school, I started to, I think it was during the summer reading thing I did. And, well, one of the book recommendations was, of course, let's see, oh, yes, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And, there was this part of the book, before you starting the story, there was like this introduction about the history of the book, and that's where I learned that, yeah, the whole thing started was because there was a contest about writing scary stories, and Mary Shelley decided to write her book, kind of like a warning about what happens when you mess with nature. And well, in the introduction, or the part with that tells you about the history, well, that a lot of the things in the book are not exactly like in the movie. I mean, I read the entire book, and there were things in the book that was never put in the movie as well. For example, you see, there was no, for one thing, in the book, there was no hunchback. Frankenstein, I mean, Dr. Victor Frankenstein was, he did the whole thing by himself. He didn't have a hunchback assistant. And another thing, the book never said what the creature actually looked like. I mean, didn't say about him having a flat head or a bolt in his neck. That's it don't and it was never called Frankenstein's monster or even Frankenstein. He was just called the creature. And I did see part of well, sorry, but anyway, of course, eventually I did watch the movie with Boris Karloff. I mean, I rented the movie from Blockbuster on DVD one time, And I saw the movie like many years later on YouTube, but it's probably removed now for copyright reasons. But I feel you can still watch it if you rent it online, and I understand that. No, yes, and oh yes, I forgot. Let's see. Oh yes, also as a kid, I did see the monsters, and Herman, he was also a parody of Frankenstein's monster. And I forgot to talk about that show in my Universal Monsters video last week. But yes, and what else? Oh yes, years later when I discovered YouTube, well, I did found this documentary about the real Frankenstein, as well as how Mary Shelley got her idea. And yes, I did mention this before already, but there was more to it. You see, what happened was that when after the contest started, well, Mary Shelley she had a dream about this man that came to life, and basically that's where she got the idea for the book. And yeah, and also there were a lot of real life inspirations for the story, like well, this is mean like a Kabbalism that if you see it's the practice of exposing electricity to a dead body. And of course, I've seen other, adaptations of, but not primarily parodies. Oh, and I did see the Fight of Frankenstein as well. It wasn't like how I thought it was started out, but it was a good movie. And of course, book or movie, the concept is that it's a good lesson of why humans should not mess with nature because or at least you say the dangers of playing God because if you try to play God, then things are not all turn out well. I mean, and the story of Frankenstein is a good lesson in that. Either way, yes, it's a good story and it has a good moral lesson if you look at it that way. Oh yes, and another thing, forgot. And here's something for fun. Just think about in the story of Frankenstein, where it was the book. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry, I remember that. I know there is a movie called Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and even though I haven't seen the whole movie, I did hear that's the closest one to be a faithful adaptation of the original story. I mean, because of the movie from the 1930s, when people think of Frankenstein, they think of the character played by Boris Karloff. Yes, like anyway, like I said, yes, it is it's still a warning story about what happens when you play God. Oh yes, and here's something fun about the story of Frankenstein is like who was the real monster? The creature that the doctor created, or maybe it was the doctor who was the real monster for causing the trouble in the first place. So I guess that's all I can say now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.